As children, most of us at some point in time or the other have picked up a stone, a pebble, or a piece of a rock and thrown it into a lake, a water body. And we have stood there in complete amazement, watching this tiny thing create ripples as those concentric rings reach out to the shores. We've also stood there and wondered, what happened to that stone? Where did it go? How did it touch the bottom? What changes did it bring about? As we grow older, those wonderful, precious childhood memories move into soft focus, and we get on with getting by. Growing up in Kolkata in the 60s, life, even though somewhat frugal, was easy. We grew up fearless. We grew up joyfully careless. And we had access to things that today's kids wouldn't even be able to imagine. Things were comfortable for us. Then somehow, the situation changed, at least in this part of the world, and we began to experience unprecedented political turmoil that laid claim to many lives that could have been either those stones or could have created enormous ripples around this world. So from changing those experiences, I grew up asking questions. I was raised in a family that gave me the strength never to accept anything without asking questions. Things were easy and things were comfortable, but not so much in my personal life because I experienced extreme violence at the age of 9, and that perhaps propelled me to take up the work that I did. Asking about how did I begin the journey with New Light? It did not begin with any grand plans. One winter evening, I just perchance found myself walking into the lanes of Calicut. Dark, uncomfortable, and I was in company of a group of boys whom I didn't know, and they knew me even less. I walk in and I see young girls in sparkly clothes, in garish makeup, waiting at the doorways, waiting for their customers. And in interaction that would give them the slightest and the smallest of resources of money with which they could buy their next meal, with which they could buy medicine for their sick mothers or for their school books for their children. Things were totally unacceptable for me. I walk in and I am filled with rage. I could not believe my eyes. I could not stand there and see that poverty, the squalor, the ill health, and go back home feeling comfortable. But I had no answers. My rage continued to grow. Day by day, I became more and more angry because I could not change anything. I calmed myself down and I thought to myself, what is that one tool that I have? And I remembered from my college days, the tool that we had always talked about was empathy. So I tried to empathize with the women that I saw. I was a young mother at that time, and I started to ask questions to myself. What is it that a mother would do in such a situation? What is that one help that she would ask for? She would ask for a better life for her children. And that is true for people around this world, no matter where you go, no matter how poor, how marginalized, how disenfranchised those communities are, all parents, they want the best for their mothers. So we took 10,000 rupees and started New Light. It's a short story, very, very short story. If you look at it in the against the larger backdrop of prostitution globally, or even in the context of exploitation. People say prostitution is the oldest trade, oldest profession in the world. I completely disagree. I think it is the world's biggest and the worst and the most heinous form of exploitation based on gender, based on poverty, based on lack of resources. We look around the world, and today we talk about Me Too. We know how many people, how many women and men have been subjected to childhood sexual abuse. And if all the women around the world could get together and for one time say Me Too, it would create a noise, a sound that would reach out to the edge of this universe. How did we begin? I was on a free fall. I had no money. I did have an education. I did have a family that supported me, my parental family. And I knew that I had to see some results. With that 10,000 rupees, I went about creating a shelter, not knowing where the money would come from tomorrow. What would we do the following day? We did not consult with anybody. We had no support. So it was like begging from door to door, asking for friends. Please give us some money. This is what we need to do. And when you start a program like that, alone, with no precedents, no established model, nobody believes you. They don't want to give you money. We all know what suspect many groups are today and why people would give you money. What have you shown? So it was a journey that began with establishing processes. How did we bring the kids from the streets to the inside of a safe area? We had to engage the community, and the community embraced my work in a way that I had absolutely no idea of, because the need was there. We cannot come in anywhere as an outsider and start dictating solutions to a community. It has to emerge from them. And all communities know what is best for them. As sociologists, as development workers, we often make that mistake. We take one model from one part of the world and say, this is going to work here. There is no one size fits all. With 7-point-something billion people on this planet, there are 7-point-something billion expectations, aspirations, ambitions, and hopes, and joys and sorrows and suffering. So there is no reason to feel just because it is happening to everybody, this is going to work here as well. I had to make an insider of myself who arrived there as an outsider. Why would anybody believe you? They would believe you if they understood that what you're talking about is true. When you say I empathize, you really, really have to arrive there and speak in the language that they understand. And I picked up my line of empathy, and I told the women that if I did not have the education that I did, if I were not born into the family that I was, and if I did not have access to all the resources in this world, I would be doing precisely what you do today to save your children, to feed your family. I would be selling my bodies. So there is no judgment. I cannot say, yes, I am better than you. I am like you. I could be like you. The fact that I'm not like you today or not in a similar position is simply because I have had X, Y, and Z in my bag. And so it began with providing the children with that X, Y, Z. So where did we begin? We began with education. We began with providing them a square meal. We began with providing them with resources that would help them get integrated with mainstream society. I walk in and I see kids running around almost without a stitch on their bodies, having no food. If you walk to any of those areas, it's a 4 feet wide lane with rooms on both sides, and the mothers are waiting in the doorways. It's a 5x7 room that has a cot and that has some utensils at the bottom of the cot. And in one corner, you might be lucky enough to find a stove. That's where she cooks. She cooks, cleans, raises her children. She entertains her clients. She looks after the sick and ailing of her family, all in that space. And in that, there is still bargaining. It is an experience that would leave most of us destroyed, as it did me. because I didn't know how I could continue with my own life, go back and live in comfort and come back there every day. But then that is the strength of human resilience. I saw them suffering. I saw them fighting, getting up every single day and getting on with their lives. I was on a free fall. I didn't know where to turn. And this is the moment when people started to gather around the project. We found unprecedented help, support, appreciation from everybody. And that made me believe that every human being on this planet is looking for that one opportunity, that one chance of doing something good, doing something positive that would validate our time of 60, 70, 80 years on this planet of billions of years. How can we look for that one opportunity? All of us have moments of deep despair and desperation. How can we turn it around? All we need to do is to look around and just look over our shoulders to see who has just a little less than me. And it works. I made an insider of myself as an outsider by trying to create changes, one change at a time. Convincing the mothers that vaccination was important, because when you live in a community like that, you are steeped in superstition. You don't believe in science because science has done nothing for you. You look around and you see electricity and you see people driving in cars and you see people doing different things to which you have no access. So why would I believe in that? So they believe in things that are more easily available. They believe in quacks. They believe in temple attendants who would sell them anything to cure them of jaundice, of hepatitis or HIV or AIDS, whatever. So to bring them science, it took us a long time. We had to convince the community that vaccination was important, that healthcare was important, that you could actually get healed of tuberculosis, something as simple as that. We didn't know how that work would proceed, but it did, and it happened simply because of the help of so many people who came around us. The next thing was, how do we create joy and hope? How do you create aspirations? You cannot create aspirations sitting in a lab or sitting on a potter's wheel. You create aspirations by creating examples. And it took us a long time. 10 years of children remaining in school, finishing high school, going out, enrolling into a college, graduating from a college, holding a job down. Yes, the first group of kids would never hold jobs down that would give them thousands of rupees or hundreds of thousands of rupees. But they would go anywhere, walk with their heads held high. They would walk in dignity. They would be recognized as people who deserve their rightful place under the sun. Often it is so easy to forget the privileges that we are born with. The kids in the project have had incredible opportunities to do whatever. They have taken parts in events that kids from mainstream society can't even dream of. You ask them, they would dance, they would sing, they would paint, they would recite a poem, they would put up a play, they would do acrobatics, they would do magic. They are capable of doing everything that we think is our privilege. So to bring about change from that set, we have to be consistent. It is not something that you can do for a short time and just disappear. Communities need a process of growing. Communities need consistent commitment that can transform their lives. And transformation, as we know, is something that doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it is just so completely imperceptible. You see it today and you see 10 years from now. In our lifetimes of 60, 70 years, when we look back and look at the mistakes that we made and we look at where our lives are, we realize what transformation it has been. In this story, Today we are very, very well placed. A lot of people come to New Light. Volunteers come. And we need skills of all people from everywhere because it's a thriving community of young kids. That is the way to build a society where everybody would be equal. It's the lack of dignity and the deprivation that you would sense when you walk into any such community, and all of us have the tools to turn it around. Small things matter. What kind of small things? Yes, how kids go to school. What interactions do they have? Are they feeling proud of themselves? Are they feeling proud of where they are or where they come from? A lot has been happening in this society, but I still feel the stigma surrounding prostitution and surrounded with the caste system, that has to go. We are still grappling with those larger problems. Most of our other problems, we feel, yeah, things have been solved. But no, these are the hidden issues. And unless and until we collectively address these hidden issues, an act here and a bill there and some protest marches, some candlelit vigils are not going to change the larger scenario. We have to be prepared. We have to create a body of foot soldiers. And talking to people, I'm often overwhelmed by the good intentions of people. As I mentioned before, everybody, all of us, look for small opportunities of validation. And those of us who have the skills, who have the knowledge, who are capable of doing it, it is time. It is about time to pick up all of those resources that we have received so plentifully, so generously, just by the station of our birth. It is time to use those to transform this world in embracing technology, embracing education, embracing opportunities, so that every single being on this world can live a life of dignity. Thank you.